Tonight, we speak quietly about Rungholt, a medieval settlement on the coast of the North Sea, a place known through documents, landscape traces, and careful historical study, a place that disappeared during a great flood in the 14th century. Rungholt is often described as a lost city. Historians are cautious with this term. It was a settlement of regional importance. Its exact scale is unknown. Much about Rungholt cannot be stated with certainty. Its precise location is debated. Its population size is unclear. Its buildings are no longer visible above ground. What follows is a restrained account. It avoids later legend. It avoids imaginative detail. It remains close to what evidence allows. We begin with the land. In the Middle Ages, the coastline of the North Sea was unstable. It did not form a fixed boundary between land and water. Instead, it shifted gradually and sometimes suddenly. Storms altered shorelines. Tides carried sediment inland. Salt marshes formed, eroded, and reformed. Low-lying coastal regions were especially exposed. Flooding was a constant risk. At the same time, these lands were fertile. The soil, enriched by marine deposits, supported agriculture. Grass grew thick for grazing. Grain could be cultivated where drainage was adequate. Human settlement in such regions required adaptation. People accepted uncertainty as part of daily life. They developed methods to manage water. Dikes were constructed from earth. Clay and sod formed the basic materials. Drainage ditches removed excess water. Sluices regulated flow. These systems required continuous care. They demanded cooperation. A breach in one location affected neighbouring areas. Failure affected everyone. The work was never finished. Each generation inherited the responsibility. Each generation passed it forward. Rungholt existed within this environment. The region where Rungholt was located is known as North Frisia. It lies along the present-day northern coast of Germany. In the medieval period, it consisted of islands and marshlands. Some islands were natural, others were shaped through land reclamation. Human labour expanded usable land. The process was gradual. Embankments were built around salt marshes, water was drained. The exposed land was claimed for use. This work required years. It required coordination among families and settlements. It created a landscape that was both natural and constructed. Settlement in North Frisia dates back many centuries. By the High Middle Ages, it was well established. Communities were organised and productive. Agriculture formed the economic base. Livestock grazing was common. Cattle and sheep were raised in significant numbers. Grain cultivation was widespread where conditions allowed. The sea played a central role. It posed danger. It also provided access and resources. Fish were abundant. Salt could be harvested. Waterways functioned as transport routes. They connected settlements to each other and to inland markets. Trade moved along these routes. Grain, livestock, and wool went out. Tools, textiles, and other goods came in. Rungholt was one of several communities in this region. Its position within this network is unclear. Whether it served as a trading centre is uncertain. The name Rungholt appears in medieval written records. The spelling varies between sources. Rungholt, Rungholt, Rungholt. This variation was typical of the period. These records indicate that Rungholt was a recognised settlement. It was not marginal. It was integrated into regional structures. Some documents suggest administrative or ecclesiastical significance. Rungholt may have served as a parish centre. It may have been involved in legal or economic affairs. A church is mentioned in connection with the settlement. Claims about exceptional wealth appear in later sources. Rungholt is sometimes described as prosperous. The basis for these claims is unclear. Historians approach such statements carefully. They may reflect memory rather than measurement. They may have grown in the retelling. What can be stated with confidence is limited. Rungholt existed. It functioned over an extended period. It was recognised in regional administration. It was permanently lost in the 14th century. Rungholt is generally believed to have been located on the island of Strand. Strand no longer exists in its medieval form. At that time, it was a large, continuous landmass. The island stretched across a significant area. Exact boundaries are difficult to establish. Historical descriptions differ. Strand supported numerous settlements. Fields were divided by drainage systems. Dikes enclosed reclaimed land. Villages were scattered across the island. The island represented a significant investment of labour. Generations had worked to make it habitable. Its maintenance required coordination. Its loss would later affect the entire region. Rungholt was one settlement among several on Strand. Its fate was tied to that of the island. Daily life in Rungholt followed established rhythms. Work was structured by season. Agriculture determined the calendar. Spring brought planting and repair. Dikes damaged by winter storms needed attention. Fields were prepared for crops. Livestock were moved to grazing areas. Summer required maintenance of fields and dikes. Weeds were cleared. Drainage channels were inspected. Hay was cut and stored. Autumn focused on harvest. Grain was gathered. Animals were selected for slaughter or kept for breeding. Preparations were made for winter. Winter emphasized survival and preparation. Food stores were managed carefully. Repairs to buildings and tools were undertaken. The community turned inward. Livestock required year-round care. Cattle and sheep were common. Animals provided food, labour, and materials. Milk, meat, leather, wool. Homes were built from available resources. Wood was the primary building material. Timber framing supported walls of wattle and daub. Roofs were thatched with reeds or straw. Stone was scarce and used sparingly. Foundations, if present, were simple. Churches might incorporate stone where available. Buildings were practical. They were designed to be repaired rather than permanent. Adaptability mattered. The environment was too unstable for structures meant to last centuries. Community life was interconnected. Shared labour fostered shared responsibility. Dike maintenance required collective effort. Harvest work was often communal. Marriage connected families. Inheritance patterns shaped land distribution. Disputes were resolved through local custom. Religious life structured time and space. If Rungholt had a church, it would have been central. Parish churches organised worship and record keeping. Birth, marriage, and death were documented there. Feast days marked the calendar. Saints' days provided rhythm to the year. Religious festivals offered relief from labour. Church authority intersected with daily life. Tithes were collected, moral guidance was offered. This was typical of medieval communities. Legal and administrative matters were handled locally or regionally. Written records suggest an organised society. Customary law governed land and water management. Rights to use land were carefully defined. The sea did not recognise these definitions. These structures did not prevent disaster. They shaped how people lived with risk. Water management remained the central concern. Dikes formed the first line of defence. They stood between settlement and inundation. They were vulnerable to erosion. Storm surges could overtop embankments. Water pressure could break through weak points. High tides increased danger. Wind direction mattered. A strong northwest wind pushed water against the coast. A strong west wind had similar effects. The angle of approach determined impact. Maintenance required constant vigilance. Repairs were frequent. Weak points could develop quickly. A small breach could expand rapidly. Despite this, communities persisted. They rebuilt after damage. They accepted loss as temporary. Land could be reclaimed again. This resilience defined coastal life. It was not optimism. It was pragmatism born of necessity. The 14th century brought increased challenges. Climatic conditions became less stable. Storm frequency and intensity increased. Written sources describe destructive floods across the North Sea region. Years are mentioned: 1,287, 1,304, 1,362, and others. Coastal settlements faced repeated inundation. Some were abandoned temporarily, some were abandoned permanently. Population pressure may have played a role. More land was reclaimed. Dike systems became more extensive. Maintenance demands increased. Whether standards of construction declined is debated. Whether coordination weakened is unclear. What is certain is that the defences failed. On a winter night in January 1362, a particularly severe storm struck. It occurred around the feast day of St. Marcellus, January 16th. For this reason, it became known as the St. Marcellus Flood. In German language sources, it is called the Grote Mandrenke. The phrase translates as Great Drowning of Men. This name conveys the human cost. The storm coincided with a high tide. Timing was catastrophic. Strong winds pushed seawater far inland. Dikes failed across wide areas. The flood affected a vast stretch of coastline. It extended from the Netherlands, along the German coast, into Denmark. Contemporary chroniclers describe widespread destruction. Settlements were overwhelmed. People and livestock drowned. Buildings collapsed. Fields were covered with seawater. Exact casualty figures are unknown. Medieval numbers are unreliable. Some sources claim tens of thousands died. Historians avoid precise totals. What can be said is this: the flood was among the most destructive in recorded regional history. Its effects were long-lasting. Recovery was incomplete in many areas. In North Frisia, the impact was severe. Large areas of land were submerged. Entire settlements disappeared. The geography was permanently altered. The island of Strand suffered extensive damage. Portions were permanently lost to the sea. Land that had taken generations to reclaim was gone. Rebuilding was limited. Rungholt was among the settlements destroyed. It did not recover. It was not rebuilt. Whether this was due to complete destruction is unclear. Whether survivors chose not to return is uncertain. Whether the land itself became uninhabitable is possible. After 1362, Rungholt disappears from records as a living community. Later documents refer to it as lost. It becomes part of historical memory rather than present reality. Survivors, if any, relocated to safer areas. Population movement followed disaster. This was common in medieval Europe. People moved to higher ground. They moved to intact settlements. The land where Rungholt once stood remained unstable. Water management systems were damaged beyond repair. Dikes were breached. Drainage channels were destroyed. Reclamation was not attempted. The sea reshaped the coastline. New channels formed where fields had been. Old boundaries vanished. The island of Strand began to fragment. Rungholt's end was final. In the years that followed, stories developed around the flood. Some accounts interpreted it as divine punishment. moral failings were blamed: pride, greed, excess. Such explanations were common in medieval thought. Disasters were often understood through a religious framework. Natural events were given spiritual meaning. Historians treat these interpretations as cultural responses. They do not explain physical causes. They reflect belief systems of the time. The flood itself can be explained through natural factors: storm surge, high tide, wind direction, structural failure of defences. No further cause is required. Over the following centuries, the coastline continued to change. Land was reclaimed again in some areas. Elsewhere, it was abandoned. The balance between human effort and natural force shifted constantly. In 1634, another catastrophic storm struck. This was the Burchardie flood, also called the Second Grote Mandrenke. It further altered North Frisia. What remained of Strand was broken apart. The island fragmented into smaller units. Modern islands such as Pelworm and Nordstrand are remnants. Some land vanished completely beneath the sea. After this event, the medieval geography became difficult to reconstruct. Place names shifted, maps changed, memory faded. Rungholt's exact location became increasingly uncertain. For centuries, Rungholt existed primarily as legend. Stories circulated. Church bells were said to ring beneath the waves. Treasure was rumoured to lie hidden in the mud. These tales are common to lost places. They express loss. They fill absence with imagination. Scholars debated Rungholt's position for generations. Some relied on written descriptions, others studied historical maps. Disagreement persisted. Modern research added archaeological evidence. The tidal flats of the Wadden Sea became a focus of study. This is a unique environment. Twice daily, the tide recedes. The seabed is exposed. At low tide, traces of medieval land use are visible. Drainage ditches appear as lines in the mud. Dike remnants form subtle elevations. Wooden stakes mark former structures. Ceramic fragments lie scattered. These features confirm extensive settlement. They show organised land management. They demonstrate long-term habitation. They prove that the land was once above water. Some of these remains are associated with Rungholt. Others may belong to neighbouring settlements. Clear attribution remains difficult. The landscape has been too thoroughly transformed. Archaeology provides context rather than certainty. Wooden buildings leave limited traces. They decay. Salt water accelerates decomposition. Stone structures were rare. Field systems are more visible. They reveal careful planning. They indicate stable communities. They show investment in the future. These findings support written sources. The land was not marginal. It was intensively used. It supported organised society. What was lost was not temporary. It was the result of generations of labour. It was home. Rungholt's story reflects a broader pattern. Medieval coastal societies lived with risk. They balanced opportunity against danger. They made calculated decisions about where to settle. The North Sea was neither benevolent nor hostile. It was a constant presence. It provided and it took away. Adaptation determined survival. Some communities endured, others did not. Fortune played a role. Geography played a role. Timing played a role. The flood of 1362 exceeded existing defences. It permanently altered settlement patterns. Some areas were never reoccupied. Rungholt did not return. Today, Rungholt occupies a quiet place in history. It is remembered because it was recorded, because its loss was noted, because documents survived. Many other settlements disappeared without trace. No names remain. No records exist. Rungholt remained in documents. Its name persisted. Modern research continues cautiously. Survey methods improve. Technology allows new approaches. Interpretations remain restrained. Uncertainty is appropriate. It reflects the limits of evidence. It acknowledges what cannot be known. Rungholt should not be imagined in detail. Its streets cannot be mapped precisely. Its buildings cannot be reconstructed with confidence. Population figures cannot be determined. What remains is a careful outline. A settlement existed. It relied on reclaimed land. It functioned for a period of time. A major flood destroyed it. It was not rebuilt. This is sufficient. Today, the Wadden Sea covers the former landscape. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Its ecological importance is recognized. Its historical layers are less visible. Tides move in and out twice daily. The rhythm has not changed. The past is alternately hidden and revealed. At low tide, faint lines appear. They are quiet marks, traces of human effort. They fade again underwater. They remind us that history is not always visible. Sometimes it lies beneath shifting surfaces. Sometimes it remains incomplete. Sometimes it resists full recovery. Rungholt belongs to this kind of history. Partial, suggestive, irretrievable in its completeness. We end without interpretation, without lesson, without embellishment. A settlement, a flood, a changed coast, and the slow passage of time